Of Del Mar, it's my privilege to welcome the Governor and our Attorney General and a number of distinguished guests. Del Mar is a small town. We're only 4,000 people, but we welcome 2 to 3 million visitors a year. And we're a very civically committed city to security and safety for our community, and including to common sense gun control and management. We are very excited to have the Governor here to present a new legislative proposal to move the ball forward, and we look forward to working with his office. And Del Mar has a strong history. We've been involved in gun control sensible regulations for years and worked with the representatives who are here and their offices at the federal, state, and local level, and we look forward to continuing that. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Supervisor Tara Lawson-Riemer, the 3rd District Supervisor for the County of San Diego. Tara?
As our region's representative for this area, I would like to welcome Governor Newsom back to San Diego County. I'm here first and foremost as a parent. As the mother of a toddler, I do not want a future where she has to practice active shooter drills. A future where I live in dread of a text message saying her school is on lockdown. So I would like to thank our statewide officials for making gun safety and gun accountability a top priority in California. I'm proud that we're making this announcement here in San Diego County because our county is leading the fight against gun violence, including ghost guns. San Diego County's new ghost gun laws will save lives. They target the manufacturers of these untraceable weapons, helping to make sure they do not fall into the wrong hands. I would like to thank my partner in these efforts, County Board Chair Nathan Fletcher. I would also like to acknowledge that we were inspired by the work of my colleagues at the City of San Diego, particularly City Attorney Mara Elliott, Councilmember Monty Von Wilpert, and Mayor Todd Gloria. The United States is the only nation in the world where civilian guns outnumber people. Think about that. So we must take new actions with all the tools available to us. Tools like consumer protection laws, which on Tuesday helped Sandy Hook families win a $73 million settlement against gun manufacturer Remington. From the courthouse to the State House, gun accountability and safety matter. So I'd like to thank Governor Newsom, Attorney General Bonta, and the state legislature for their leadership and for giving us more tools to keep our families safe and fight gun violence. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Assemblymember Chris Ward.
Great. Well, thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, Mayor, for welcoming us here to the Del Mar Fairgrounds. I want to thank our community advocates as well, who keep the messaging going regularly and make sure that they're lifting us up for the work that we're doing. My name is Chris Ward. I'm the State Assembly member for the 78th District here in San Diego, and I'd like to welcome my colleagues, Attorney General Bonta and Governor Newsom as well, for this important announcement here today. Nearly 40,000 lives are lost across this country because of gun violence each year. More than 100 people shot and killed in the United States every single day. And it is no surprise that here in the state of California, where we have a conscientious effort to make sure that we have some of the strongest gun violence prevention reduction laws in the country, that we also are protecting people and seeing lower rates of gun violence. And that is what the effort here is today, to build upon that, to make sure that the work that we're doing to play a larger role in holding gun manufacturers accountable. You hear about that, about new legislation being introduced today, and the work that I've done both at the city and now working at the state on closing ghost gun loopholes is important, because it's about protecting members of our community and keeping California on the forefront of national policy about how to reduce gun violence, how to save lives. And so we're very excited about this announcement here today. So with that, I'd like to welcome one of my colleagues, our budget chair of the State Assembly and also also a leader statewide in gun violence prevention legislation, Assemblymember Phil Ting.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's really an honor to be here. With great power comes great responsibility. It's a time to hold the gun industry accountable for the carnage and the fear in our streets, in our communities. That's why I'm so honored to be joining with my colleague, Assemblymember Ward, Assemblymember Gibson, Attorney General Bonta, in introducing AB 1594, the Gun Industry Responsibility Act. And in partnership with the Brady campaign as well, really appreciate all the support. And the Gun Industry Responsibility Act is very simple. In every industry in this country, every industry is held responsible for the products that they sell to consumers on our streets, except for one, and that's the gun industry. But here in our state, what we hope to do is make that industry accountable for the guns that they put on our streets every single day, and that they are responsible for the actions that people take with those weapons. And it's a time that we hold these manufacturers accountable, the dealers accountable, the distributors accountable, that every person who makes a profit on this industry needs to be held accountable for the very products that they are putting into people's hands. That's why we heard about the amazing lawsuit against Remington in Connecticut for the Sandy Hook, for those poor Sandy Hook families, and we hope that we can use this law to help replicate and get more justice for families of gun violence here in California. It's absolutely time that we hold this industry responsible. We shouldn't be held to the federal laws that were passed that completely shield one industry and one industry alone for the products that they put into the hands of 40 million Californians. With that, it is my honor to introduce my colleague from the East Bay, in the Bay Area, Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan.
Thank you all. I'm Rebecca Bauer-Kahan. I'm the Assembly member from the 16th Assembly District, and I'm also a mom of 3 young kids. And I want what every mom wants. I want my kids to be healthy and happy, safe and alive. Gun violence is the 3rd leading cause of death for our kids and our teens. When weapons are in the hands of our children, the victims are overwhelmingly other children, over 90% of the time. There are hundreds of accidental gun shootings every year, and in those, almost half of those children die, and the other half are injured, sometimes critically. And here in California, you cannot sell guns to our children. But that doesn't stop the gun manufacturers from marketing guns to our children, to our most vulnerable Californians. And that, with AB 2571, will stop. We are working together to ensure that we are going to stop the marketing of guns and weapons to our kids. Weapons are advertised to our kids across all platforms, through video games and cartoons, books, on social media. And we need to make sure that our kids get to be kids, and they get to be safe, and most importantly, alive. And with that, I want to thank our governor for his incredible partnership in ending gun violence here in California. I want to thank my colleagues for their leadership in this space. And most importantly, I want to thank these incredible advocates who fight every day for gun safety, for bringing this issue to the forefront, for making sure that leaders like the ones you see here today are doing what is in with our power to protect our kids, to protect our communities, and to end gun violence. And with that, I want to introduce our colleague from the Senate, a wonderful leader in this space, Senator Hertzberg.
My name is Bob Hertzberg. I represent Los Angeles and have done so on and off for a lot of decades. And this has been an issue that we have worked on over the years, back in the 90s, and continue to fight the fight for the reasons that were expressed by the eloquent members of the legislature who served in local government before me. But I want to say this. In a just world, a woman's right to choose would be sacrosanct. And California's people would be protected from ghost guns and assault weapons. Sadly, the United States Supreme Court seemed determined to turn common sense on its head. Our message today to the United States Supreme Court is as follows. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. I look forward to rushing a new bill to the governor's desk to take advantage of that United States Supreme Court guidance. Thank you very much. And with that, I want to introduce our extraordinarily wonderful Attorney General who's been a partner on so many things since the days in local government and before, and is doing a fantastic job, Attorney General Bonta. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and let me at the outset just say how honored and proud and thankful I am to be with these incredible advocates, champions for saving lives, for gun safety, for addressing the gun violence epidemic that is in our neighborhoods and communities and on our streets throughout this country, and really appreciate this incredible team of legislators who have been doing this work day in and day out, year after year. They're my former colleagues in the legislature, but they're my always friends and allies, and proud to ally with them once again to keep our communities safe. And thankful for our fearless governor bringing us together today to make this announcement on the steps and the action that we're taking today to keep our communities safe. Also just really appreciate our advocates. Can't say enough about all you do every day. It's always an honor to stand with you and beside you and to partner on making change that will be lasting and sustainable. And let's make no mistake about what we're doing today. Today we are mounting a stand against the gun lobby. We're here to do our part to end the sickening wave of gun violence plaguing our streets. And I use that word deliberately, intentionally. It's sickening that there have been about as many mass shootings in America as days so far in 2022. You can't talk about rises in crime without talking about rises in gun violence. In California, the increase that we have seen in our homicide rate is almost exclusively the result of gun violence. That is sickening. That's disgusting. That's unacceptable. Let's talk about what we're talking about here. We're talking about toddlers gunned down in their homes. We're talking about mothers and sisters, brothers and fathers shot in our neighborhoods and in our communities. They're not coming back. It needs to end. And we all know that public safety is foundational. It is fundamental. Everyone, wherever you live, whatever your neighborhood, your community, you deserve to be safe. I've had the opportunity to travel throughout California and talk to Californians that represent our beautifully diverse state. And never once have I spoken to anyone who wants to be the victim of a crime. And here at the Department of Justice, here in California, we're going to do our part to keep communities safe. And that means a critical part of that is holding folks accountable. When you endanger someone or harm another, you need to be held to account. And for too long, the NRA and its loose web of affiliates have worked to pass laws seeking to shield the gun industry, industry-specific carve-outs, to shield them from liability for the death and for the destruction their products cause. They have taken specific steps to avoid accountability. In 2005, the NRA successfully lobbied for a federal law signed by George W. Bush that granted gun manufacturers and distributors a special industry exemption, an exemption from liability for the injuries their firearms cause based on their irresponsible behavior. Because of this law, the rules that apply to all products in the United States, from tobacco to toaster ovens, no longer applied to them. But in California, we all play by the same rules. And that must include the gun industry. And so that's why I'm thankful to partner with Assemblymember Phil Ting and my other colleagues to sponsor AB 1594, which will fit within an exception to the federal law and ensure that my office, along with Californians victimized by wrongful firearm industry conduct, that they can fight back with civil suits seeking justice and fair remedies for the damage that these companies have caused. And this will rebalance the playing field and ensure that victims have as many paths to their day in court as they would for any other product. And this will build on our existing legal tools and require the firearm industry to take steps to implement reasonable safeguards to stop their products from being trafficked, from being stolen, or being illegally used in California. It'll prevent gun industry members from funneling firearms to sellers or distributors who they know fail to comply with our gun safety laws, resulting in a homicide rate that is driven, again, almost exclusively by gun violence. We can't bring back the victims of gun violence we've lost, but we can ensure that their families have a path to justice, to accountability. And that's exactly what this bill does. And I'm proud to stand here today with our governor and members of our legislature to get this done. And this set of bills will be another tool, a set of tools that we have to take on gun violence in our communities. At the California Department of Justice, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, advocating for gun safety legislation like this and other appropriate bills, fighting to keep weapons of war off our streets, defending our gun laws in court when they're challenged, such as our assault weapons ban or a large capacity magazine ban, seizing illegally held firearms through our APPS program, our Armed Prohibited Persons system, and cracking down on untraceable ghost guns. We're going to use every tool we have. We must, because this moment demands that we do that. One more child murdered, that's one too many. One more loved one ripped away is one too many. This crisis, it must end. And I'm proud to stand with everyone here to help make that happen. Thank you. And with that, I'm honored to have the privilege to introduce our courageous governor, the governor of the great state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you to all the elected officials. Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Madam Supervisor, thank you for your leadership, your stewardship. Thank you for inviting us here. To all of the members of the Assembly and the Senate, I'm grateful for your ongoing leadership. To the remarkable advocacy organizations, Brady and Moms Demanding Action, we're grateful to all of you. So many of the ideas and principles that we're advancing here today came from you and your advocacy, and you create the conditions that allow us to be able to do our job, to continue to move the needle, and to advance the national conversation on gun safety. California takes that role and responsibility seriously. And I want to make that point by reinforcing it. The modern American gun safety movement started in the state of California. It was a Republican governor by the name of Ronald Reagan that led that effort. It may not have been his focus on gun safety. It may have had a racial component associated with the Black Panthers, but nonetheless, on May 2nd, 1967, the modern American gun safety movement started here in the state of California. It was advanced through tragedy over and over and over again, from 5 gunned down in Stockton that led to an assault weapons ban, to 101 California that led then former Mayor Dianne Feinstein, Senator Feinstein, to advance a national assault weapons ban later in 1994. California continues to lead. And the evidence and data is in. Gun safety saves lives. It's not something we assert, something we can prove over and over and over again. You look at the data, gun-related deaths in the state of California, as we advanced and initiated these gun safety laws, reduced death in this state. That's not even in dispute. What is in dispute is our incapacity in this country to grow up, to wake up, and to reconcile the absurdity and the extremism that has dominated this country as it relates to guns. I have, this is personal, no issue with guns or gun owners. None. I have serious issues with gun violence. I have serious issues with a company that thinks it's okay to market a JR Junior 15 modeled after a weapon of war, an AR-15, that took the lives of 20 precious first graders and 6 adults at Sandy Hook, and to promote it with a skull and bone and a pacifier. How the hell do they think that's okay? Selling stickers and T-shirts and hats, marketing not a toy gun, but a junior 15, to start them early. And these guys are still out there defending it. That's how extreme things are. And by the way, I'm not naive. They're going to take this video and they're going to say we're just victims. Well, we're all victims of their greed, of their avarice, of their extremism. And that's what we're standing up against. But you know what makes this day a little bit different, and the reason I'm a little bit more optimistic is we're going to start playing by their rules now and not continue to be on the defense. And Senator Hertzberg said it was incredibly important. The Supreme Court of the United States opened up a door wide open. We're using their rules, those that they seemingly support, coming out of the extreme anti-abortion legislation that came out of Texas. And we're going to allow all of you to enforce the rules and regulations and laws of the state of California, and I think that's a good thing. If Texas can use a law to ban a woman's right to choose and to put her health at risk, we will use that same law to save lives and improve the health and safety of the people in the state of California, allowing you to enforce the illegal sales and manufacturing of weapons of war and assault rifles and ghost guns in the state of California. And by the way, there is no principled way the U.S. Supreme Court cannot uphold this California law. None. Period, full stop. It is quite literally modeled after the law they just upheld in Texas. So I'm really grateful to Senator Hertzberg for having the courage to take this and to take them, the gun lobby, on in this respect. I'm incredibly grateful to the leadership of the Assembly and the Assembly members that are assembled here today to address the PLCA issues and the issues of immunity, the issues were brought to the fore this week with that $73 million Remington settlement, to reconcile this remarkable and absurd, completely wholly owned, NRA-backed, bought and paid for legislation to provide immunity to the gun manufacturers only, and to challenge that here in the state of California. I mean, it has gotten so ridiculous, so extreme, so absurd, and California is now going to start playing on their terms. I'm sick of being on the defense on this stuff. So we have 4 great pieces of legislation here today, getting tough on ghost guns, requiring background checks, dealing with serial numbers. The ghost gun issue is a crisis in this state and country. You all know that. In fact, I woke up this morning, one of the San Diego news stations, doing a whole series on it. I don't need to tell you about it. And I appreciate that. But we need to continue to do more. You've got judges like this Judge Benitez, who's just a stone-cold ideologue, writing NRA-backed press releases, throwing out all these gun laws in the state of California. And I say that as a son of a judge, so I don't say that lightly. I have deep respect for the bench and the branch. But his opinions equating an AR-15, a weapon of war that took 20 lives in Sandy Hook and are one of the most common denominators of all these mass shootings, to a Swiss Army knife, he's not a serious person. That's what we're up against. And I'll tell you what, it's worse than that. And one federal judge out here, whose opinions are already written, how about the U.S. Supreme Court and what they're about to do? Yesterday we announced a plan to move from a pandemic mindset to an endemic mindset as it relates to COVID-19 and deal with this health crisis moving forward. Have we gotten out of it the last 2 years? You want to talk about a health crisis? How about the one that's going to be created by the U.S. Supreme Court as it relates to Roe v. Wade being overturned? How about the one that's going to be created by the same U.S. Supreme Court as it relates to overturning many of the nation's gun laws that will happen in just a matter of months in this country? It passes prologue. This is a serious moment. The public health and safety of millions and millions of Americans are at risk, and so California has to do more. We are tasked yet again to do more and to be better. This is not about attacking law-abiding gun owners. It's about attacking a culture of violence that we've allowed to be perpetuated for too long. And so forgive me being so long-winded, am really honored to be here with these remarkable leaders and, yes, our Attorney General, who gets it and are getting things done every single day in this state to keep you safe, to keep us healthy, and to call out the extremism of those that have lost any bearing and balance on gun and gun advocacy, that are sitting there promoting such crap as JR-15s and marketing like Joe Camel marketed cigarettes to our kids, guns to our children. Forgive the pointed language, but I can't show up at another one of these press conferences like I did, 15 or 20 times as mayor, 6 or 7 times already as governor, and give the same speech over and over and over again. I think I'm on the 3rd iteration of I'm over thoughts and prayers speech. I can't even give that anymore. This is comical, only in America. God bless the USA. So, I think it was Kennedy who said, God's work is truly our own. So it's in that spirit that we are not just praying, we're moving our feet today, and we're moving these legislative efforts forward, and I'm looking forward to signing them very, very shortly. With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News. You yourself right now are voicing frustration with the rulings, and inevitably every time legislation is introduced, it's repealed, it's caught up in lawsuits, it drags on, and inevitably it eventually falls apart. What's going to be different this time, and how are you going to make sure that this time it's different?
Well, I appreciate the question, but I challenge the premise a little bit. California's laws have been upheld over and over and over and over and over again. California's been a national leader. California's been a model to others. Laws in this state that Brady and others have advanced have been replicated all over the United States of America, and we're really proud of that. By the way, reinforced not just by legislators, but by the voters themselves. I was involved in an initiative with Brady and others demanding action, and others, Prop 63, won by 63% of the vote a number of years ago. And those laws are upheld consistently. And then you've got, ideological judges that challenge those laws, and a Supreme Court now that's stacked, that does challenge precedent. But I think we are up to the task, and we'll continue to fight the good fight. And I think what we're doing is taking them to task a bit, aren't we, on this Texas abortion decision, and calling the question. We'll see how principled the U.S. Supreme Court is.
Hi, Governor. Nate Holmes with ABC 10 News here in San Diego. Just wanted to touch on a piece of legislation that wasn't touched on this morning, but a new bill was introduced earlier this month that would ban the sale of firearms and ammunition on state property, and that would include the fairgrounds and ultimately here at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, where it's home of many popular gun shows. Just wanted to know your stance on that and kind of where we stand.
Well, my stance is well defined. I think I'm on the receiving end of that lawsuit, but I have one better. I have my attorney here, the Attorney General of the state of California. He may want to opine.
Well, thank you for the question. As you know, there have been a series of bills that have become law in the state of California involving the prohibition specifically and targeted at the sale of guns and ammunition on fairgrounds. And you mentioned the law related to all state property. There's no duty to sell guns or ammunition on state grounds, and of course the ongoing activities at the fairgrounds will continue, cultural, educational, training, displays, etc. So it's just a very specific component designed towards promoting more public safety, protecting our children, everything that we've all just talked about up here relating to the sale specifically of guns and ammunition on state property and on at fairgrounds. So we're defending at the California Department of Justice those laws of the state of California, and we feel we're on very solid legal footing.
Some member up talk a little bit more about that as well.
Just wanted to add a point of information. Thank you for the question. So I wanted to thank Mayor Gloria, who then, when he was in the Assembly, authored Assembly Bill 893, which actually banned the sale of guns and ammunition right here at Del Mar Fairgrounds. While that did not apply statewide, we are going to take that really seriously as we go through our legislative process to look at other state properties as well. And I want to thank the governor for his signature on Assembly Bill 893. My bill this year, AB 311, will close a loophole that will also address ghost guns, precursor kit parts, right here at the Del Mar Fairgrounds as well. So wanted to add that information. Thanks for the question.
Hey, Governor, Jason Sloss with KSWB. What would you say to many Californians in response to community safety and gun violence? Many Californians would say part of the problem is the early release of tens of thousands of inmates, and that's part of the gun violence problem here in this state.
Well, if there was substantive evidence to back that up, a lot of assertion in that space. It's interesting. I was looking at the national statistics where homicide rates had increased the fastest and the highest in the country. It's interesting. 4 out of 5 were deep red states. Montana among those leading in terms of increases in homicides. It's comparing just Texas, big red state. They may not have had those same early releases. They actually had higher property and violent crime rates in the state of California. So I'm open argument, interested in evidence, and I would say that we need to back that up. But one thing we have in common is a need and desire to reconcile what's going on, not just here in the state, but in this country as it relates to crime and violence. That's why we put out a close to $400 million crime package a few months ago with the Attorney General and legislative leaders to support district attorneys, investigations, a new CHP task force related to retail theft. You've seen a number of arrests already in this space, including just this week, more arrests, more recovery of goods that have been stolen, more accountability in that space, more transparency, a new unit that's being established in the AG's office in this space. So we take it very, very seriously. It's foundational, and it's critical that we continue to work with local law enforcement, hold perpetrators to account, and no one here is suggesting otherwise. So one of the big principal concerns, though, remains number of ghost guns and guns out on the streets and sidewalks. Ask any police chief in the state, across this country, they would say the same. And that's one component that we're here today to talk about. Those other components, we've had multiple press conferences advancing, and they are currently sitting in front of the legislature, and I look forward to their early action in terms of those efforts.
Hi, Governor. This is Julie Watson from the Associated Press. I had a question just about, well, I guess 2 questions really. One is, do you fear that a ballot initiative from the gun industry could happen to overturn this bill? And I'm just wondering about the
forgive me for cutting you off. Bring it on. They'll get crushed. Crushed. People of California have no patience for their promotions. It will get crushed. If they do it, they will be crushed. Public has no patience for these purveyors of violence and death.
And secondly, can you address, as far as whether this is also about applying pressure to the Supreme Court from authorizing the Texas law? How much does that play a role in this?
Well, I thought the decision was absurd. It was outrageous, the Supreme Court decision. But they opened up the door. They've set the tenor, the rules. And either we could be on the defense complaining about it, or we can play by those rules. We're going to play by those rules. And we'll assert ourselves accordingly. And we'll call the question. We'll expose, one, A, their rank hypocrisy if they overturn this legislative effort while upholding that, or we'll get them to reconsider the absurdity of their previous decision. Either way, I think we will be doing something appropriate and something constructive. Any further comments, though, by any of the legislative leaders? Many that traveled far to come down. Anyone want to close up? Rebecca?
I would just add on the question regarding abortion rights, which is obviously a critical issue to me as a legislative leader in the space, the governor, and all of my colleagues, that California is also moving a package of bills to protect every woman's right to choose. We believe that that's critically important. The safety of Californians means a lot of things. It means access to health care and control of our own health care and gun violence prevention, and we will be leading in each one of those spaces this year, and I know that the governor will be an incredible partner on those efforts.
With that, thank you again, all of you, for being out here, but no one more important than all of you. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you.